There was one other thing I meant to show you in just one of my other little cool power key things that I really enjoy, and that's you have 4 programmable buttons in each screen. Okay? For example, when I come over here to Transitions menu, there's an M1, M2, M3, and M4, which are F5 through 8, and you can program them for your favorite. For example, my favorite transitions. I use crossfade a lot. So I can program that to be M1, and M2 is my motion 3D, and so on. Those are the only 2 that I have programmed in this particular window. And it's very easy by just coming down here and selecting a transition, and by holding the key you want to assign it to and the control button, then next time when you come up here, M3 goes right to Dreamland. So again, select the function that you want to have programmed. Hold down Control and that M1, M2, M3, M4, which again are function keys F5 through 8, and it will program that, and that's separate for each window. So as I go into titling as well, I have some programmed as well. So I've got pages and through fading pages. That's a neat little kind of programmable for something that you use a lot. All right. This next section's focus is kind of to get even more familiar with the capabilities available to you in the titling menu. And I have some specific things that I wanted to cover in that capacity. Kind of dressing up your fonts, and then with the title box and adding the graphics, whether they're created within your machine or if you choose to go with the title box, pre-made graphics, you have those capabilities as well. Let's see. And you may be aware, too, that you have this capacity in all of your menus by selecting all. It's showing me all the software licensed for my machine. But if I wanted to deal with one particular piece of software, I could, for example, select Title Effects 3, and it's showing me all the title effects that come in that particular package to either demonstrate or utilize or what have you. So I am a particular fan of Title Effects Pack 2. I think there's a lot in there. People have their favorites, and that's certainly fine. We have Let Her Fly is pretty cool. When you add a title to any particular scene, again, as we pointed out, the Monday night session is the default length is going to be the length of the whole scene, as indicated over here in the time button. By left-clicking on that time button, you have the ability to go into range and to trim or modify that length. I can adjust it and make it shorter in the beginning of the scene as well as the ending of the scene, so that title can sit just the specific length that I want. One thing I knew that I found in working particularly with beginners in the school environment is a lot of them would put their titles over a whole long scene, and you'd have like a lower thirds title name identifying somebody that's way too long. Okay? One rule of thumb, and it's not gospel, but it's preference, is that if you leave it on screen for someone to read through it 3 times fast. Chet Davis Macro System, Chet Davis Macro System, Chet Davis Macro System. It's on there long enough for the slow reader to get it at least once, and it's on there short enough, it's not going to bore the heck out of somebody else. It's like, all right already, get rid of it. And it's taking up rendering time anyway. So again, that's kind of a preference issue that you might want to do. So I've got a 7:18 scene here, and my title sequence is now 5:11. Okay? We highly recommend that you add a title effect before you go to enter edit text. Okay? And I am going to take a couple moments talking about this, because this does indeed deal with, and we've got that particular issue going on right here. If you are involved, let's say you demonstrated, you did some demo on one of the fonts, okay? And you were just checking it out, and you ended up not purchasing it, you didn't like it, whatever, and you come back to your title later on, and you're doing titles, and you know you're using fonts that you purchased for your system, and yet when you go to play it back, you render and create it, and it keeps coming up, demo. What the heck is going on here? Okay? Well, what's happening is, very likely, when you went to explore that possibility, you see how I do not have a title effect up there right now? If I come to enter edit text, okay, what I'm changing here is what we call the default title. Okay? And I'm going to go to Archives and load in a title that I already have created. Okay, so now what this means is any time that I go to put a font in, it's going to come up with that text as my default title. You may remember, and if you are a person who's followed that rule, whether you knew it or not, on your system when you go to enter edit text, it says Macro System Casablanca in a really weird font, but it's there. Okay? That's the default title. Now you can use that to your benefit, because if there's a particular chunk of text, title screen, and or a particular font, color, layout that you really, really like, you can load that in your default title. So every time it comes up, it's going to come up with those particular fonts and colors and characteristics. Okay? Now the cool thing that I can do with that is I can come here and I can utilize that to my benefit by just keeping the characteristics, okay, and by retyping new information. So it retains that same text information. It's like having a master archive project. Where this becomes a problem is, again, if I was demoing a font down here, and I happen to use, and I'm sorry to say, well, I'm not really sorry to say it, but I'll point out that I do happen to have on this particular Solitaire every piece of software activated. If I had a piece of software that was in demo mode, even if I used the space character, for example, I don't see that as text, but the system sees that as a piece of text from unactivated or unlicensed, unregistered software. And it's going to say demo, okay? Even though I don't see it with my eyes. The system sees you using demo software. And again, if you've got that embedded in your default titler, it's going to come up every single time. And you're not going to think to clear it because you don't see it there. So the way to get around that, again, is, well, the easiest way to get around it is to see Carol today and make sure you buy every font package that we offer. That'll totally take care of it once and for all. But there is another way, and that's, to go ahead and totally clear out your default titler and only use a font that you know you have active in your system. Okay? Now, again, it will show under fonts, it will show a little red dot here indicating that that's a demo font, and you shouldn't use it because you haven't paid for purchase that yet. Okay. And another way to get around that is to come over here in boxes and you just delete everything. Delete boxes. I don't have any more boxes left. And on pages too, I delete all my pages. Totally clear that default title. The other thing, as I'm going to show you in the next hour here, is how to build pages. You can have multiple pages in the same title. And you may clear off your first page and think, whew, I'm home free. But every time you call it up, you ever had that happen to you where you called something up and you go, where'd the heck that page come from? Where'd that group of titles come from? That was last month. Well, it got loaded in your default titler. Okay? And then the way to clear it out, very simply, is do this. Before you insert a title, come up here to enter edit text. Okay? Boxes. Delete all boxes. There's none left. This is box 1 of 1 and it's clear. Then go back to pages. Delete all my pages. There's not, because if it said 1 of 3, you've still got some more pages, and you can see them by going here, but just delete them all. Okay? I now have a totally clean default title. There's no text, no font attributes in this title. So when I go ahead now and create my next title sequence, it comes up totally blank. Okay? All right, so that's kind of how to get rid of titles. Let's show you how to make them. So I got this simple scene here, and again, let's go ahead and go to range, and I'm going to go in for like a 5-second title. I got Tom Jones stuck in my head. I hate when that happens. Okay. And then I go to enter edit text. Okay. And again, let's go ahead and I kind of go in a particular order. Text. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select a font that works well for me, and I will point out that again I'm kind of old school in some capacity, but those who have heard me before know that I talk about the virtues of actually being able to read the titles that you create for your audience. So I find some people get so wigged out on being creative, they forget that the purpose of titling is actually to convey some information. So, and the one thing that I say, even though we're called to create and supply these fonts, I would be one who says that the Gutenberg font works particularly well in the Old Testament circa about, what, 1624. Doesn't display too well on a 4:3 TV screen. When you get into, you know, some fonts that are heavily serifed, they can look beautiful on an etched wedding invitation, but on a video screen, just, you know, have somebody else come in and look at the titles is what I always recommend. Is, you know, can you read, is that, and don't ask him, is that pretty? Ask him, can you read that? And then, is it pretty? So, but again, that's my own, like, you know, pet peeve is I highly recommend sticking with something that's very readable. Yes?
Can you program favorite fonts, you know, so you get, like, instead of having to go through a list and say you like to use like 4 or 5 all the time? Can you program it?
Not at this point in time, no. Now, what you can do is if you know if you write down the name of the font, like David is one that is particularly readable, I can press letter L, which gives me the list, and then I can hit D, and it takes me to the D section, so it's kind of quick and easy for me to get there. I mean, it's not truly a programmed point, but it just kind of helps me get there a little bit quicker. Okay. So now that I've got my font there, I can go ahead and type. Now we need some appropriate music. Who's going to Under the Sea? All right. So we've got our font, and if I'm particularly happy, and again, once you have text up there, you can go ahead and, you know, change and select a different font if you choose. The other thing to be careful is, of course, your sizing. Size does matter, and what we want to be careful of is that we have text that stays within the what's called the essential area of the screen. Back too many years ago now, when I was in college studying communications, it was very clear that you had your scanning, your safe, and your essential area. Okay, and really what that means is your main characters, in particular when you're doing titling, your text needs to stay away from the edges of your screen. If you think, yes, I was able to squeeze it in there, that's maybe not such a good thing. Because if you've seen your product on somebody else's monitors, sometimes it's out of misalignment or maybe abuse from that monitor or just factory missetting, that it could be that if you put Under the Sea all the way over here on somebody else's monitor, it's reading SE and the A is totally gone. Okay? And this is not that uncommon of a situation. Okay? So you want to have your important textual information in from the borders. Okay? Reserve a safe space where you're not going to be placing stuff. Okay? Now let's say you have a particularly long under the, let's see, let's call this the, let's see, give me a name of a sea. Too long. That's an ocean anyway. Indian. Okay. Oh, nice. Yeah, it won't fit. So this almost worked as a perfect.
It's Indian Ocean.
Oh, all right. Okay.
The Red Sea would be better.
Plus, red matches your jelly.
You know, Lee, I love your color coordination. You are. Ooh, but careful now. There's a zinger open. I'd stand back if I were you. All right. So, you know, if I found that this was getting particularly long, we're going to name a new sea here, by the way. It's the Coralie Sea. You may have heard of this. Because it just fits what I need to do here. That goes too far to the edges for me. But if I wanted to fit that in, and I didn't want to modify the overall size, we have some capabilities under the line. I can actually go in and fine-tune and adjust the width of the characters. So, same font, same height. And I can even adjust the space between the characters. Okay? And again, the nice thing about that, it really gives you some customization capabilities in terms of what some systems would call kerning, is the ability to take those font attributes and modify them and pull them together to kind of still hold on to the overall look and yet fit it all into a better, you know, a space that fits better the kind of thing that I'm trying to do. Oops. Third time's a charm. Okay. So, under the Coralie C. I like that. Okay. And remember we explored Monday night the capabilities, how I can pick the colors within my fonts. So again, if I wanted to select a color from my video scene, I could come over here and take the red from the jelly. Oh, it's kind of a coral. Ooh, that's a nice coral color, isn't it? Coral pink, we'll call that. Okay. And again, if I really like that color, I could go and save that. I want to save that particular color. I love typing when people are watching. Okay. Now I've actually saved that color and can bring it up at any point in time later on when I'm working in my menu or any other particular menu. And again, the way that I do that is click on Color, click on Archives, just to show you. Let's click so you see a different color. Go to Archives. This time I want to load a color I've already created before, and it's saved alphabetically. And Coral Pink is brought up. The other thing that I highly recommend, that I really enjoy when I'm creating titles, just to make them that little bit of panache, is to take the alpha channel or the transparency and bring it down some. And as I joke, but I still hear this once in a while, the question is, does that mean the Eiffel Tower appears in my video? No, it doesn't. The Eiffel Tower is just there to kind of represent your video clip behind and the relative transparency of your video. For me, somewhere between 70–80% works particularly well in most shots. And it's nice if you've got a full motion video clip, and particularly with a wider font, it'll actually show through. And it's just a really kind of a subtle hint. It's a really classy looking effect. Okay. Now I have the capability as well to italicize that particular line if I want. And I can establish an outline or an edge. And for me, again, kind of old school, I don't like to go too much. To me, too much is just in your face kind of thing. I like just a little bit. And again, you can colorize that as well. Okay, can make that a nice kind of a subtle blue. And again, you can double click on any area of your color requester to get that particular color, or you can scroll down, again, kind of adjusting what color do you want and how light or dark you want it. And then pull that baby out. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. And then again, you can do your drop shadow. And in this case, I want a darker drop shadow, but I still kind of want to stay in the realm of the blue hues. So I come over here, and we have the capacity to throw that drop shadow with just a little bit of definition with the text there. Okay.
Hey, Chet, is there any chance that Smart Edit 5 will allow you to underline text?
No, no. That's not in Smart Edit 5. Yeah, there's a couple workarounds, as you probably already know, but that'd be a good one to ask Jorg about when that capability might be. Again, so you've got your line of text, and again, as I pointed out the other night, it is what we call line-oriented text. You're changing one line at a time. And once you've got one line set, some people will type a line of text and then get it set, and then the carriage return will now take these characteristics down to the next line. Okay? But they won't take them back to a previous line. So some people will set one line and then do the carriage return before they do everything else. But if you're sometimes like me and you do a bunch of stuff and you go, okay, now I want to change it, again, the way to do that, and this is an important remember button, is we call this a box of text. When I go to Boxes and click on Extended, and this is in the handouts, I can copy the style to all lines. Okay? Now notice it copied all the attributes except the specific font. I do have the capability to do that two separate ways. Again, sometimes people want to have different font sizes but the same characteristics, and that's why we give those two buttons. So I might want to say, you know, dance recital produced by Chet Davis, cast in like 130 points, and then have the names of the individuals in like an 85-point text. That's why there's a difference between copy font to all and copy the style to all. Okay, so now we've copied that to all the lines here. Again, I'm going to go ahead and select a little bit fatter font. You can see we have symbols as well, which actually can be useful and interesting, and I'll show you one particular application. Oh, that's cute. Now Now somebody tell me again, how do I copy that to all the lines? Boxes. Extended. Okay, and in this case I do it twice because we already had the style, so copy the font to all lines. Kind of would fit that 70s show, I think, but that works. Okay. And this particular font, what I want to do is I want to go in and arrange the style. Instead of having a solid color or even having a transparent color, okay, and it's darker so it's not going to show up as well, I can go ahead and throw a pattern behind there. And again, this is something you don't have to purchase. You can use it right now. But there are different choices right under Casablanca. There's your favorite company logos. And there's actually a couple of logos of some German videographer clubs, believe it or not, heavy users of the product. We've got some nice monochromatic or polychromatic images, so when it comes time for that wearing of the Irish. And I can take this beautiful velvet plasma background, and I can even run it any number of ways that actually throws the pattern a different direction. Run it positive or negative, 180 degrees on the color wheel. Or I can colorize that myself and kind of wig it out and do all kinds of interesting things to it. That now becomes the characteristic or the font. And let's go a little bit different here. That'd be interesting. Okay, that now will become the font style inside my letters. Oof. Again, that's when you kind of go, interesting, but not quite so attractive.
That's a California thing.
Yeah, well, thanks. We're always pushing the envelope over there, you know? Yeah, it's that, maybe this is that green. It's just like, whoa. There we go. That's better. A little bit more subdued. Oh, okay. That's sort of kind of pretty. And okay, so again, you can pull in all kinds of stuff. That pattern gives you access to the entire image pool. So if you've got the effects packages, again, like Video Spice Rack and let me see, where's the other one I was thinking? The Magic Lights, you can do some really, really cool things within the fonts. And make them virtually unreadable. So. There we go.
Chet, I've noticed that a lot of those masks are duplicated, different effects packages. When you install that software, is it actually duplicating the mask? Are there multiple copies of the same mask, or is it just like shared files?
In the image pool, it's that same, like Video Spice Rack, is available across the realm. There are separate, specific transitional patterns, though, within Video Spice Rack, and then separate ones that you'll find over as well with Magic Lights or some of the other applications as well.
It seems that some of them seem to be shared. When I go in there, I'll see the same masks in different softwares.
I haven't noticed that, but then again, I'm not a full-time editor, so I can look into that. All right. So we've got some, again, some very, very simple. And the nice thing I can do right from this window is I can go ahead and do a preview right here. Okay. So again, that's called flying letters. And I think we're going to go back to this simple version here and go to boxes and copy that style to all lines. It's simple, but then again, for me, it just works particularly well. Obviously, I have some nat sound I want to deal with as well. But let's say, in this particular case, when I've backed out, I'm in the Enter Edit Text window. Right here, before a minute ago, when I went to Archives, I was only calling up the style, the color information. Here, I can actually archive entire titles, entire screens. And so I go under Archives, and I can save this as a year from now. I'm going, where did I create that? Okay. And so I've actually saved that. So I can bring up, and the neat thing is if you've got like a credits screen, okay, you can bring that up here and be done with it, totally done. If you have, you got the Visa and MasterCard, which are actually two of the more useful symbol fonts we actually have. And so you can bring up a whole host of, different. There's one I created a while ago as well. So should say greater now.
Let's hear it.
But woohoo! But some real cool capabilities. And because I did archive our core release C, I can come right back to that. So it can save you a lot of time later on to archive particular title screens that you're going to use a significant period of time. I'm going to go ahead and the neat thing about this, with boxes, we have this whole screen. Think of this title screen as a box. What you're seeing is a box, and it happens to be filled with those particular letters. Now, right now, when you go to the system, the box is the entire page. But we can modify that. Okay? We can size the box ourselves so that the title is centered inside of that box. Or I can very easily click on Extended and go to the minimum size, and it will wrap that box just around the text. And the neat thing about that is then I can free position that to a specific place on screen. Gone are the days, like some of you have in the past, by virtue of the space bar and the return key had to position something perfectly in the right space on the screen. Okay? So again, go to Boxes. You can adjust the size or minimum size, and then you have the capacity to move that box on screen. Okay? So now when it does the effect, it's going to do it kind of upper left screen centered. In this particular case, I think what I would do is I'd want to cut some kind of nice screen space down here in the bottom left corner, a little bit away from the edges from my safe area, and run that out here. Yeah. So a lot of flexibility within the realm of the boxes. Now the other interesting thing is on this one page of a title effect, I can add more than one box. Okay? So I go to Boxes and I add. And now I have a box that I can call, well, that I don't call, but I'm going to add text in here. And each box has independent characteristics. So in this box, I could have an entirely different font. And style. And so on and so on.
Now, if you wanted those to come on and off different from the other, you just layer it.
That would need to be layered still, yes, correct. Correct. But in what's going to happen in this case is, because they're both under the same menu, they're going to both kind of fly on, but to their own independent spaces at the same time. Okay? Several of the effects take advantage of the box. In fact, they're named. Fading boxes, moving boxes, and they will move. If you have several independent boxes, they'll kind of come in at the same time, but to their kind of own individual space. Now, if I wanted text to kind of come in separately apart from each other, and hold on to this box thing because we're going to go back into this in a second, but I want to get rid of that wow box. I click on Boxes, and I just click back and forth. The nice thing is they're free positionable, so I can, even after I've already played with it, I can go back now. I want to get rid of that one, and you can see that's box 2 of 2. It's the second box I've created. And I want to delete that box. It's gone. Okay, so you have, again, that control to adjust your boxes. But let's say I wanted to have successive pages on my title. Under the C, I want for my first page. Then the second page, I want to put, I want to add another page. So I come to the Pages button, click Pages, and insert one, and I want it behind so that this one will be the first one. Now I've opened up a whole new page. And it retains the characteristics from the first page. Thank you. All right. So now the neat thing about that is, if you have the need, is it's going to take those two pages and equally divide them over the length of the scene without me having to create a title, then create another title. So you can do some, Okay. Obviously too short for this duration of time, but what I can do is I can go ahead and take this, and let's put, do I have another sea life shot here? Well, I guess we'll go ahead and use that guy for right now. Is again, because of the titling capabilities, I can use the range function and extend this over an adjacent scene. So now it's going to take those two scenes and divide them over 8 seconds and 28 frames, giving me kind of a much more livable product. Now, you can do that with any of the effects. So the multiple pages will react relative to the particular effect you've got going on. Okay? The one exception is anytime you're doing a vertical scroll, that the pages function does not work because it works only from one single page of textual information, which I'm going to cover in a second. But questions on this? Pages or the beginning of the boxes?
I do have a question.
Yes, sir.
Is Microsystem any closer to licensing tree-type fonts?
I don't believe so.
Because I, for one, would be willing to pay extra for it.
Well, in that case, yes.
No, I was just wondering if anybody else is on the same mindset that I am.
I second that motion.
Yeah.
5 treatable fonts, scrap them.
Nobody else wants to chime in on that?
We get requests about that.
Yeah.
But that's it.
Well, I mean, that, the other interesting thing, and based on questions that came up yesterday, that's interesting too, is, and I'm not in Jorg's shoes to appreciate, but coming to events, email and telephone, and it's good. And I think he avails himself to the customer base that a lot of people, I think, in his position, I've known lots of people, they don't. They just, talk to somebody else besides me. I'm the CEO, I'm too busy. But imagine from yesterday in the 20-minute session we were talking about splitting music to the beat, all the other suggestions that came out about this would be great if you added and added and added and added. Multiply that by, I don't know how many times a week, and then a month, and we as a manufacturer then realistically need to step back and say, what's going to make the most sense for our end users to keep them creative, to keep them productive, and make their business or their hobby lucrative or fun-filled. And where do we devote our development efforts in the way that we believe is going to make the most sense? Like for you as business owners, have to make those kind of decisions as well. And this is not meant to be a poo-poo. I'm not saying don't bring up any other suggestions, but we encourage and welcome those inputs, but take that in that perspective as we have to then well, not me, it's like I don't have that opportunity. But Jorg and his team have to step back and say, okay, with lists and lists of suggestions, many, many good and valuable ones, what makes the most business sense from a manufacturing standpoint? Where do we put the time in our developers to spend the time to write the code to make something happen? So, and quite frankly, some of them come from, there used to be a list of the number of user-initiated, customer-initiated changes going back from the very first interface, and it's in the hundreds and hundreds in terms of all the changes we've got from customers and end users. So keep them coming, but also realize, like in the great democracy, just because everyone votes doesn't mean that your vote is going to happen. So please keep them coming, and particularly when Jorg hears from lots and lots of people for particular comments. If he hears from hundreds and hundreds of people, we need particular fonts or a special kind of fonts or true type fonts. That's how can he disregard that kind of input? So. Yeah, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to make a left turn and go off and spend an hour on that particular topic. But I think it is important to note, and I'm comfortable sharing with you folks, and I hope it's taken in the spirit that I share it with, is just open and honest communication, is those are the kind of things we're up. I'd rather do it that way than say, oh yeah, send me all your lists and I'll delete them next week. I want to be honest and genuine with you.
Well, generally what they're saying is that out of all the fonts that we have in here right now, we're only stuck with about 4 or 5 that we can actually use.
I would disagree.
I disagree.
Yeah. Now there's gospel and there's preference and a matter of opinion, and you're totally entitled to that. So,
how many fonts are there in that screen you showed us?
Like 50, 80, probably more.
Somewhere in the neighborhood of I think 160.
Right.
Yeah. On the Let's Keep Hacking It side, they're spread out over a whole bunch of different packages. So
sure.
Instead of having one package, maybe like this is the only one I would need to have. Now I'm forced to have to go out and buy whatever amount they are to come up with these other. And one who's been around since '97, we're always saying that. I mean, we've been harping about fonts
Yeah.
for 6 years. And
That's why Font Pack Pro came out, which is a collection of what most people would say is the more robust, professional-looking group of fonts. But yeah, I hear what you're saying. I totally
get that CD that's got one song on it, you're stuck with 14 others that you could care less.
Right.
I want software that will let me take any number of the thousands of fonts I've got on my PC and use those recognized fonts by other graphic professionals when they tell me they want this particular font. I want to be able to use it on the video. So I want software that will let me load true type fonts.
Are those true type fonts?
That is exactly
No, they're not. No.
There's a licensing fee.
Yeah.
Type ones, and they don't pay it.
Yeah. It becomes a licensing question.
I would pay it.
So. Yeah, but again, please bring that up to your org, either by conversation or email. So we welcome and encourage that. I'm going to go ahead and take a jump back into the boxes because I want to show you how you would create I need to pull up something different here in terms of a lower thirds situation. Well, it's not particularly moving, shall we say, but it gives you a good sense of what's what here. If I wanted to do a lower thirds title on George Washington here, let's go ahead and delete this box. And let's call him and I'm going to run out of space. You can see, excuse me, George Wash. And let's go ahead and bring up the style here. Bring in a pattern. And I'm going to go ahead and bring in, let's take away the color and go to the, there we go. Kind of cheesy, but okay, it'll work. And I'm going to go ahead, and because I want to have this as a box, I go to boxes, and I want to minimum size that, and then I want to move that down. Okay? So a relatively easy way to do a lower thirds title. Now the thing I want to do, though, is I want to size that manually, because I'm going to show you what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take this, and I'm actually have it run from screen left to screen right. Size that baby out. And so, again, a nice simple way to go ahead and create that. But you have the capabilities as well inside of that box to put in artwork or graphics. So again, with that box selected or highlighted, I go into graphics, and the default setting is always transparent, unless you've adjusted it, and so your default setting comes up with graphics, and that can be really interesting. So when I click the check mark, it brings in a graphic that I can put on that lower thirds title. And right now, it's just a solid color with a pretty good degree of transparency. Okay? I can bring in, again, another, I could do a gradient fill in here and colorize that. And let's go, that's okay. Bless you. Okay, sort of works. Okay. We can adjust the brightness and contrast. Okay. And so you have kind of a red, white, and blue filled background. And that's, I'd love to sell you something that will do that, but it's already in the operating system. Okay, so that's in your operating system with version 3 and higher. You have the capability again here to select the background and select the box. Okay, and again you access the image pool and you have the capability to bring up those. Okay, and again I can go ahead and give that a higher degree of an alpha channel and make it much more transparent and just kind of have it be a an attractive effect in the background. Now the other neat thing I can do as well is that's where the title backs collection. If you do lots of lower thirds titling, look at this. It's a good consideration. It gives you 101 different images, particularly for anybody that's doing high school athletics and you want you've got a basketball court, believe it or not, that will actually play in there. So players' names, And again, you can adjust the level of transparency. You can do some really fun and cool things in there. And again, the title backs is available in the preview mode. And you have the capability to adjust them in terms of free-scaled. It'll fit a fixed scaled version that was preset by the developers. There's the original, and you can actually have a tile effect. And some of them will do like a logo. We'll do a tile all the way across in different places, back and forth. For me, the free-scaled works particularly well because then you pick up some of the interesting characteristics and some of the, if it's not just a straight-ahead box, it gives you some capabilities for doing some really creative piecework in there. Questions, comments, thoughts on that? Yeah, that's a fun piece.
I hope they're working on some more of them, too. There are really some interesting things you can do with them. That's a great package.
The title backs?
Yes.
Yeah, that is a nice package. Yeah. Yeah, they're so nicely done. Nicely done. Let me show you, and this came out of a customer. This was Jeff Minton in our Orlando conference. And he came up with this question, and we worked on it, and I came up and said, you know, that's a really cool idea. I love that. So what we did is I wanted to take, let's go ahead and take my clip of the Wyoming rodeo. And what I want to do is I want to do a double scrolling credits. Okay? So what I want to achieve here is, like you see in the end of some Hollywood films and television shows, is I want to have like cast and crew on the left side, for example, and the names that go with those positions on the right side, but in different colors. Okay, we can do it kind of side by side right now. I could just arrange my pages and just make them all the same color and the same font. But if I wanted to modify that, here's how we would do that, and it's using the boxes function. Okay, so what I would do is I would come to, for example, scaling vertical scroll or vertical scroll, and I add the effect before I go into enter edit text. Okay, and now I'm going to actually change my box. I'm going to take my box, and I'm, for example, going to fill the left side of the screen from the top to the bottom. So I'm going to have a line of credits running through the left screen, and those are going to be the cast and crew positions. And let's go ahead and do this here. Let's, don't want to be unpatriotic, but let's lose the style here. I'm not sure the Cowboys will be loving my selection of the font here, but yeah, let's get rid of that font too. Something straight ahead and macho. Floyd. There we go. Stop.
Overactive index.
I think so. It's that left twitch in there. Okay, so I'm gonna have to come back down and.
I thought ProDuder was pretty appropriate.
ProDuder, that does work. I don't like that. Okay. Now you saw that I changed that last line of text in terms of its size because it's all in the same box. I have the capability to again copy that change all the way up, so it will modify the font all the way up there. Okay, and I have the capability here to come back, and so we've got a day on a bowl, ProDuder. There you go. I like that. Yeah. Now, the one thing that I do want, because I want this to match, it's important for me to be aware of the font size. Okay, and this is true with any system. 45-point font in one particular font is going to occupy different space in a 45-font of another kind of a font style. So for me, I'm going to choose to take Floyd, because Floyd sounds like a perfect thing on a ranch. Floyd, go down and see how the, All right, so Floyd's got a 45-point font set up here. So we're going to go ahead, and you see where I've started my box. So it's kind of important that I'm going to do that, and I'm going to go here and add another box. Okay? Then this time I'm going to start over here and bring it down. And you can see that I got some bumping into the text over here, so I want to rearrange that puppy like there. Okay? And I want to make sure that I got my 45-point Floyd. Bless you. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here, and I've hit the carriage return, because what I want to have happen, as I move the menu up, is I want the text to come out. I'm going to have the title come out first by itself. And then it's going to say producer. And so I'm hitting the 4 lines of the carriage return over on the right side. Got to talk like I'm Floyd now. On the right side over here. So thank you, Michael.
Chet, could you use the 3rd box for the title and have it go all the way through?
Yes. The easy thing about and what I've got probably, and I did this on purpose, is when I take a look at my boxes on the top here, when I come back to boxes, I have the capability to move that puppy down just a little bit. There we go. Pretty darn close. Now again, I got the same font over here, but what I want to do is I reckon I want to change the style. So I want to come over here and make a modification.
All of a sudden you got a twang.
There you go. And because it's in the same box, y'all can go in here and just copy that box information, the styling on down. So we've got the same font and the same size.
We're going to get you on over.
Sorry. So I kind of got a bad. I'm somewhere between Wyoming and North Carolina. It ain't working very good. So it's kind of like those bad English actors that they try to get them to, or a bad American actor and try to get them to do an English accent. Yeah.
I wish I could quit you.
He often thought back to those days in Tucson. Okay. All right. Now you got me all messed up, Lee. Okay. My wife's going to ask me, so how was Tucson? And who is Lee? Okay, anyway. So, so it, oh, I changed my style one more time over here. And I guess I was flustered with all the infatuation, and so I got to modify my. Okay, but you can see that can be a really cool cool effect that you can work on there, and have some real fun going on. And as Ron pointed out, actually I did this another time as well. And let's see, do I have this puppy saved? And what I did is I ran the scrolling credits. I made a scene of it. And then after the last credits came up, like in this case I did, maybe I should just render that out and show you what I'm talking about here. First thing I'm going to do is, if I'm going to do that, is I'm going to shorten up the duration. Maybe make it about 10 seconds long. Making sure it's not too fast. Oh, you know what I did? I clicked out of that puppy. Oh, that was fun, Chet. Good news is, because I've archived it, I come back here and load that baby, and we call them dual credits. All right. Different title there, but it still kind of works for you. I want that to be 10 seconds long. We can go ahead and render or create that. And then what's going to happen is we've got some space at the end of that where the video footage is still rolling on. So I can make a scene of this and come in with like a fading credit screen, so I can still do a kind of a different title on top of that. So I'm going to come over here with a scene, and I'm going to make if I make a scene of just the effect, remember the base scene is 15 seconds, the title effect is 10 seconds and 18 frames. If I just do the effect, I'm missing some footage, and I want to keep the footage intact. That's why this choice is here. Effect plus a scene, yeah, replace that. Go ahead and replace it. Oh, that's interesting, Chet. That Mickey, he's following me all over. Bad advice.
And never replace it.
I do a lot.
Question.
Yes.
Then you lose it.
Huh? Still in?
right
there, but the icon.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm sorry, question?
Can you right justify the left column and left justify the right column? They're all centered now in each column.
Yes, yes. In the box menu, I'll show you that real quick here. Let me finish out this thought. If I wanted to have fading pages, that's it. Fading letters, I like. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is, at the end of this scene, again, I got my scroll and credits going up. So I'm going to go through that. And just when it's near the top, I want my kind of credits to come out for the last 425. So what I can do is, let's go to Archives and load a little credit screen. And let's quickly change the color of the text there.
Did you split that schema?
I did not. No. Good. Thank you for the clarifying question. Let me show you exactly what I did on that.
Time-wise.
Right. What I did is I just used the time function or the range function, and I'm starting my title sequence at the end of the previous thing that's already embedded on the base of that scene. Okay. And so then what we get is, and so my finished piece, you've got your, it's only going to show me that effect, so let's go ahead and make a scene of that. Let's see if it'll do it again. Okay, this time we're cool. And I'd probably have it just a little bit later, fade on a little bit slower maybe. But so you can, very simply by using that capacity, have the ability to create some really cool titles in and out.
You actually put 3 boxes in your titles, center your Star Desert with that, in the center, the box in the center, and then you use your reflected threads on both sides, the producer and whoever it was.
Say that again and use small words so I can.
You use 2 boxes
Okay.
for your title and credits.
Okay.
You actually, there's really not much. How many more? What is the limit on boxes?
I'm not aware of any finite limit.
Okay, so like center
But-
your title.
Put Star Desert in the exact center of the
right.
image.
Well, that's a separate box in the center, and then your 2 other boxes. We could use 3 boxes for that if you wanted to.
Sure.
There's no
Sure.
limit really.
No.
Except for the size of your box.
And I would point out the readability of your screen.
Exactly.
But within that, yes.
Within that parameter, within those parameters, you could make it a lot more professional.
Then my titles, you mean? Thanks, Mitch. Can I see you after class? Yes, but yes, yeah, totally right. Yeah, you're just expounding on what I've started. That's good. Let's cut it right there. All right, thanks. Yes, no, you're totally right. Yeah, you can. Yeah, it's neat because you do have the flexibility to go ahead and add multiple boxes and have some really cool stuff going on. No.
There's 2.
Okay.
20% discount.
Yeah, take his ticket out of the winning list. Okay. Now, the other question, and it was asked over here, was, within this box, you can see that they're centered. As long as I click inside of that box, I can adjust the text, and I can have it left justified, and it'll left justify that. And when I copy that to all in that box, it will stylize, and let me kind of run them all left justified. So yes, you can do that by box.
I would do it the other way around. Right justify on the left side, left justify on the right side.
There you go.
Anyway, that's what can be done.
Okay, yes, correct. Okay, so other questions or thoughts in here while we're, I think I just want to make sure I covered the gist of the main thing that
Can I just make one comment, Chet?
Please.
When you do the replace and you click yes, you lose it in your scene bin. And if you click no, it'll come back in your scene bin and you can reuse it anytime you want.
Yes, but if you, it's a matter of preference and how you layer things. I can come back to this and search for it, and it'll ask me, hey, you rummy, you did it the other way, and if I delete that, it's gone forever, Clementine. So if I do this, then it will recreate that. So that's, If I was in terms of like speed editing, okay. If I was cranking along, I would advise, yeah. For me, I like doing that quick layer thing sometimes, and then it is highly advisable to do that search function to force a save in your scene bin, because that's really important. Because I have had times in front of groups, which is a lot of fun, is building this big thing, and then I remove it to do something else, and it's like, oh crap, it's gone. Right. So yeah, thank you. That could be a really important point for kind of covering your hiney and making sure things are flowing. So. Yeah. Does everybody understand that scene function? I don't know how much, if Bertie went into that. And we talked a little bit about Monday night, but it can be a very, very powerful tool if you use it creatively. Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay. There were a couple. We're going to take, I think, like a 3-minute stretch your back and get a quick soda. And literally, I mean, like, 3.5. Let's do 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Okay. Check. Hola, senor. Uh-oh. You need the lights or want the lights on? Somebody bring up the house lights, please. Thank you.
It's empty. That's